There is a lot of mystery as to what exactly goes on in North Korea. The information we get from inside the country is heavily filtered, leaving only the accurate first-hand accounts to those who have fled from its totalitarian regime. I feel like it would be kind of in poor taste to rank these individuals, so I'm just gonna order this list in terms of the year each one of them defected. And I apologize in advance if I messed up the pronunciation as some of these names. I'm Canadian and I have a hard time even speaking English good sometimes. With all that said, let's jump right into it. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 real people who escaped North Korea. No Kum-sok. No Kum-sok, also known as Kenneth Rowe, was a North Korean pilot who defected to South Korea in 1953. No was one of the few North Korean pilots who had been trained to fly the Soviet-made MiG-15, a high-performance fighter jet. He was stationed at a North Korean airbase near the Yalu River when he decided to get out of there. On September 21st, 1953, No flew his MiG-15 across the border into South Korea and landed at Kimpo Air Base. He was immediately taken into custody by US military officials who were stunned and quite impressed by his audacity. No went on to become a US citizen and worked as an aeronautical engineer for many years. He also wrote a memoir, A MiG-15 to Freedom, which detailed his experiences in North Korea and his daring escape. No's story remains one of the most remarkable tales of defection and espionage during the Cold War. Next up, we have Kim Shin-jo. Born in 1942, Kim Shin-jo was a North Korean commando who in 1968, along with 30 other comrades, were sent by the founder of North Korea himself, Kim Il-sung, across the border to assassinate the then president of South Korea, Park Chung-hee. They had trained for a couple years in order to accomplish this mission and had managed to come pretty close to their target. The Blue House, where the president resided, was in sight, but after being stopped by a police officer who thought their overstuffed trench coats looked a little suspicious, the team soon engaged in a firefight with the Capitol Garrison Command, protecting the presidential residence. 29 of the 31-man group lost their lives, with one survivor managing to escape back to North Korea and the other, Kim, being arrested by South Korean authorities. For an entire year, he was interrogated but ended up being released and became a full-fledged South Korean citizen. He became a pastor, and he's now 80 years old. He's got a wife and 2 children. Kang Chol-hwan. Kang Chol-hwan was a prominent North Korean defector who escaped the country in 1992. Born in Pyongyang in 1968, Kang's family was part of the country's elite class. However, Kang's privileged upbringing came to an abrupt end when his grandfather was accused of treason and sent to a labor camp. In 1977, when Kang was just 9 years old, he and his family were forcibly relocated to the Yodok concentration camp, where they spent the next 10 years. The conditions at the camp were brutal, with forced labor, starvation, and even daily beatings. Despite the hardship, Kang managed to survive, and after his release, purchased an illegal radio receiver and began listening to broadcasts from over the border. And then he began to become kind of more and more interested and involved in anti-government activity. But he feared being sent back to Yodok. They were kind of starting to suspect him, so he set out to escape. Kang escaped North Korea in 1992, settling in South Korea, where he began to speak out about his experiences. He wrote a book, The Aquariums of Pyongyang, detailing his time in the concentration camp. Kang has since become a vocal advocate for human rights in North Korea and has testified before the United Nations and other international organizations. Hwang Jang-yop is renowned as the highest ranking North Korean politician to have defected. Born in 1923, he rose to be a pivotal politician before escaping from his home country in 1997. Hwang is known for having helped establish the North Korean political ideology of Juche, a kind of reworking of Marxist-Leninism, to put it very simply. Over time, though, Hwang became disillusioned with the regime's policies and its oppressive tactics. He began to kind of start questioning the ideology of Juche and the cult of personality that surrounded the North Korean leadership. In the mid-1990s, Hwang secretly began to plan his defection. In 1997, Hwang was visiting Beijing on official business when he decided to make his move. He slipped away from his security detail and walked into the South Korean embassy, posing as a South Korean diplomat using a fake ID. When the truth of his defection was discovered, it caused shockwaves around the world. Hwang's defection was a significant blow to the North Korean regime, which had considered him a loyalist. It was also a turning point in South Korea's relations with the North, as it highlighted the deep ideological division between the two countries. Hwang continued to speak out against the North Korean regime until his death in 2010, and his defection remains one of the most high-profile cases in modern history. Next on the list is Jang Yeong-jin, born in 1957 or 58. We're not too quite sure on that. Jang defected from North Korea in 1997. Jang was born and raised on the eastern coast of North Korea in the city of Cheol-woong. In 1976, he joined the North Korean military, but was discharged in 1982 after contracting tuberculosis. He then began working as a wireless communications official in his hometown. He would marry a woman through an arranged marriage, but the relationship never seemed to work out, as Jang didn't have much of an attraction to her, or any woman for that matter. Jang was unable to discuss his feelings both with his wife or anyone for that matter because, as Jang would state himself, there's no concept of homosexuality in North Korea. If someone is seen running to greet another same-sex friend, it's assumed that's just because they have such a close friendship. Jang's family simply assumed there was something medically wrong with him. In 1997, he would be one of the few North Korean citizens to successfully flee to South Korea by crawling through the demilitarized zone. Today, Jang is happily married, working as an author. Lee Hyeon-seo, probably messing up that name there. Again, sorry. Born and raised in Hisan, a city near the border with China, Lee grew up in a society where the government controlled every aspect of daily life. A life that Lee believed to be completely normal as a child. She was taught to be fiercely loyal to the regime, just like all children were, and to see the outside world as an enemy. Lee would escape from North Korea in 1997, where she lived alone for 10 years as an illegal immigrant. Due to suspicions from Chinese authorities, however, she soon fled to South Korea in 2008. After discovering that the money she had sent to her family had been intercepted by North Korean police, she became worried about their safety and decided to go back for them. She managed to guide them over the border, embarking on a dangerous journey through China where they would nearly be caught on several occasions. Lee published a memoir about her experience called The Girl with the Seven Names and has become an advocate for human rights and speaks frequently about her life in North Korea, hoping to raise awareness about the plight of those who still remain trapped in the country. Kim Chol-woong, this North Korean-born pianist, defected from his home country in 2001. Kim started playing the piano at a young age and quickly demonstrated a natural talent for the instrument. In 1996, he was accepted into the Pyongyang Music and Dance University, one of the most prestigious music schools in North Korea. After graduation, Kim began his professional career as a pianist, performing at various concerts and events in North Korea. He soon gained popularity for his exceptional skill and interpretation of classical music. However, in 2001, Kim decided to defect from North Korea. He had become disillusioned with the repressive regime in North Korea and wanted to pursue his passion for music in a more free society. He left his home country with 2,000 American dollars in his pocket, which he ended up having to bribe undercover authorities with, who eventually helped him cross the Tumen River into China. Once in China, he joined a church where he played piano before discovering that South Korea would provide asylum to those defecting from North Korea. While trying to leave the Beijing airport, however, he was arrested and sent back on a train to North Korea. But he escaped out the window. He was once again caught in China though and sent back to a prison camp in North Korea for a second time. Miraculously though, the investigator in charge of Kim knew his father and respected his father greatly actually, because he had received his current position thanks to his father. So the investigator did Kim a solid and managed to have him released. Kim headed back straight to the Tumen River, where he was able to escape without a hitch this time, eventually receiving asylum in South Korea in 2002. Jeong Kwang-il. Now, I was actually kind of hesitant about putting this guy on the list at first because I feel like it's almost counterproductive to bring too much attention to what he does, as his work would be more effective without too many people knowing about him. But there's articles about him already. He's been on the news. He's done interviews. Plus, I just find him so interesting. I couldn't help it. Jeong Kwang-il is a North Korean defector who smuggles all kinds of entertainment from South Korea and the US into North Korea. I'm not even going to talk about his methods of doing this because, again, I don't feel right about putting it all out there in the open, even though the information is very easy to find. But he sent all kinds of media over, movies like Skyfall, South Korean soap operas, and even testimonials from other North Korean defectors, all in hopes that feeding information from the outside world into a country with no free press, no internet, very little, if any, contact with the outside world would open the eyes of the North Korean people to the tyranny that they're under. Yeonmi Park. Yeonmi Park fled from North Korea with her mother in 2007. After her father was caught smuggling and sent to a labor camp, her family became desperate for food. Park managed to obtain an illegally imported VHS tape of Titanic, which opened her eyes to the world outside of North Korea and changed her view of the country. And after her father was eventually reunited with the family, they made the decision to escape to China. However, her father ended up staying behind due to illness. Yeonmi's journey with her mother was treacherous, but they eventually made their way to South Korea when they were granted asylum. Yeonmi has since become a vocal advocate for human rights and has spoken extensively about her experiences in North Korea. Her memoir, In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom, has become an international seller. She's probably best known for being featured on the Joe Rogan podcast, where she talked about her ordeal. So if you want to hear more about her, you know how long Joe Rogan podcasts are, definitely check it out. And lastly, we have Oh Chong-song, the most recent prominent North Korean defector. Oh was an industrial engineer in North Korea who made his escape. He drove his car right up to the North and South Korean border, crashing his vehicle before exiting it and scrambling towards the South Korean side. North Korean guards began firing at him, and he took several gunshots before finally collapsing to the ground. But he'd made it. He was retrieved by South Korean soldiers and transported to the Aju University Hospital. Oh had been struck 5 times and had lost half of his blood. The doctors also discovered large parasitic worms in his digestive tract, but despite his life-threatening injuries, the doctors managed to save his life and said it was a miracle he had survived. This entire incident that took place in the demilitarized zone was captured on camera, and it's pretty intense. Oh has spoken out about his experience, quoted as saying, "I was extremely terrified. I watch this video once in a while, and every time I see it, I realize the fact that I'm alive is a miracle. Even I can't believe something like this happened. I can't believe it's me in the video." And with all that said, I've been your host, James, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.